Hey everybody, welcome to the Principal PLN. Today we're going to be talking about email, all things email with Jessica Johnson is here, and also we have a very special guest, Curt Rees. Curt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks Mike. Jessica, good to see you.
Yeah, hey, so we've had Curt on the show before when we were formerly under a different name, but for those of you who don't know Curt Rees, he's another elementary principal and a recess kickball legend in Onalaska, Wisconsin. So he's one of my wee amigos. Other things about Curt, his school is recognized by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction as a model school for their implementation of response to intervention. I think that is because RTI is and Curt's also a doctoral student at, what is it, like the University of Kentucky, Curt?
The University of Kentucky, yep. It's their EDL program, so educational leadership, but the specific program I'm doing is in school technology leadership.
Very cool. And Curt is also featured because of his recess kickball legend Twitter handle in the book Connected Leadership that is out at Corwin Press, because one of the things that initially attracted me to Curt, other than him being a really cool guy and being from Wisconsin and being your friend Jessica, was the fact that he said recess kickball legend. The thing that I think is hilarious now is that one day I think that Brad Gustafson and Curt are going to have a one-on-one kickball game to see who is the best.
You can't play kickball one-on-one. I mean, we'd have to come up with some teams, and I think Wisconsin would have their own team, and then like Wisconsin
that would be cool.
Against everybody else, I think.
Or Wisconsin against Minnesota.
There you go. There you go.
That would be tough.
Especially if you played it in the winter, too. It's really cold.
Yeah, nobody else could handle that.
So, Curt, the reason why we wanted to have you on is that Jessica raves about your email prowess, and I'll be honest with you, her and I had this discussion. I was like, could we really do a show on email? And it wasn't until last week where we talked about, being organized and trying to, stay ahead of the curve with all the things that you have to do as the principal, where, like, afterwards, I was like, this could totally work. We could do probably 45 minutes on email. So she said, we got to get Curt on, because Curt has a really cool and interesting philosophy on email and a way to deal with it. So I guess tell us a little bit about, I know it sounds odd, but tell us a little bit about email.
Yeah, I mean, at first it isn't, it's not like a topic that sounds like greatly interesting, but once you talk about it, it is. I think people are very interested in making good use of their time.
Right.
So, and that's, I mean, email can be such a time suck, and we don't have time for time sucks at all. So I guess that's my interest, because I would rather be, I don't want to be chained to the expectations for email for myself or from other people. So I just try to make sure that I have good systems that work for me, so that I can have my focus and attention elsewhere. So that's kind of that's my preamble to my thoughts on email is, free your time and also your mental energy from it.
Yeah, because it's not one of those cool, sexy Web 2.0 tools that that everybody wants to talk about. But yet, I would say by and large, I don't know anyone who's not dealing on a consistent basis with email.
Yeah, and we all are. So so I think we can all do something about it in how we send emails and suck up other people's time, but then also how we respond to it as well. So I think there's lots of things that I do that really work for me to attain inbox zero. And for those people who aren't familiar with inbox zero, what it means is that your inbox has 0 messages. Everything is either dealt with or processed or scheduled. It's something that I achieve quite frequently. And I have 4 different email accounts. And one of them, like my Hotmail account, that's just kind of, that's tied to Amazon and all that. So that will have a bunch of junk in it all the time. But like my school email, but then also university email and personal email, I'm down to 0 almost all the time.
Almost all the time.
Several times a week I'm at 0.
All the time? Are you serious?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Curt is the one who introduced me to Getting Things Done by David Allen, which I talked about in our last podcast, and then also the concept of inbox zero. And I'm looking back at my goals, and I achieved inbox zero 5 times last school year.
Wow.
That's it. And Curt does it almost all the time.
Yeah, I don't even keep track of it anymore because it happens quite a bit.
So,
And,
Curt, take us
Mhm,
through, like, let's start with work email.
mhm.
Take us through your process. First off, what systems do you guys use at your school?
We're Gmail, which I think really helps a lot, and we've been Gmail
Okay.
for a couple of years. So I just think Gmail works incredibly well for staying organized. Number one, just in terms of, so it's a getting things done concept, but don't sit down to look at email unless you have time to do email. Don't browse it throughout the day. That's a big mistake.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be a couple times a day when I just not necessarily have it scheduled, but I know I have maybe 20 minutes or half hour, and I'll sit down and I'll just crank through all of my emails. And a getting things done principle is don't try not to touch things twice. So like if there's an email, make a decision about it right away. Either respond. Like if you can do it within 2 minutes, take care of that particular response, then do it. Otherwise, figure out what it's about and then just decide on what you're going to do. Assign an action to it. And I use the app, but then also the desktop version of OmniFocus. And there's lots of other products out there that help you keep organized. It's like it's like a to-do list. So that's with email. Don't let your inbox be your to-do list. So if I'll get an email that requires more than just 2 minutes to respond to it, I'll forward it onto OmniFocus, and then I'll put a due date on it, and then I'll say what I have to do with it, not just the email itself. So it could be write a report on board goals. So that will be the action that's assigned to that particular email because the email has all the information I need in it. So that's kind of my workflow for those sessions when I do look at email, which is probably just maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And I'll schedule it around all the really busy stuff that needs my face-to-face attention.
Okay, so I'm looking at my work email right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have Jessica's laughing at me last week, but we use Microsoft, Microsoft Office. So, which I like. Actually, I think I like a little bit more than Gmail, and a lot of people talk about this because if they've been conditioned to Outlook, because it's very sequential, where Google has introduced all the different threads. But for instance, like I'm glancing through mine right now, and I do seek to be inbox 0, but I know that I probably haven't done it all this school year because I'm looking at like there's still an email from last month. So last month, two weeks ago, and this week. So I have probably about 25 emails here. So when you look at emails coming in, right? So I'm going to give you an example, and you have RTI, as Jessica said. So I have something from last month in here that was adjustments to the RTI teacher evaluation process. So when we're evaluating the teachers, there was a couple things that our district did to create some norms for RTI teachers because they're not dealing with lots of kids, and they're also dealing with kids for maybe 6 to 8 weeks to remediate where they are and then get them to the next level. So I haven't evaluated any of them yet, but I have all these different notes in here. So when I go through, and we use McCrell, all these notes of things that I need to look for. What would you have done with that once you got that back on September 22nd?
Well, first thing, so rather than just having it sit in my email, so if it's a document like that maybe will take a half hour to read and analyze and understand. So I would just take that email, forward it to OmniFocus, which will then make it an action item. And it doesn't have to be OmniFocus. There are many other services that do this. So I would schedule it. I would put a due date on it. I would say, all right, by November 10th or on November 10th, read and understand what this happens to be. So then I would drop it into my to-do list. But then what I like about Gmail, and I know other email services have this too, I would archive it. So just so I can refer back to it. So right away I would just assign what I'm supposed to do with it and just get it out of the inbox.
So would you put it in, like, say, an RTI folder? Because I do have an RTI folder that I didn't put it in yet.
Yeah, you could put it in folders, but what I really like is if you have the ability to label your emails or tag them, and again, that's a Gmail thing, but there are many ways to do it with the different email services. So I would put a tag on it that just says RTI. But the nice thing about tagging is that you can give it multiple tags, so you can search for it in a variety of ways rather than just living in one specific folder. So you might call it RTI, you might call it admin, and you might call it evaluation. So it can live in all of those different places. And
So
then get it out of your inbox.
I don't use OmniFocus, but I have been getting better at scheduling things, Curt, and I think that's where I end up falling off is like when I have some of those emails too, like, you know, some video clips to watch for educator effectiveness, or from DPI on assessment stuff that they're sitting in my inbox because I didn't schedule them. And I know, I think that's the missing part is if I don't schedule it, then they just sit there. And you're saying schedule it and get it out of your inbox. But then, so sometimes I have the issue that I forget what folder I put it in. And so one thing I do try is, since I haven't paid to get OmniFocus, which it sounds like that's like the gold, platinum, whatever version of to-do list. But if I schedule it, I will often put a note like it's in this folder, so I'll remember where to look, because otherwise there's so many darn folders that I have.
Yeah, or if you have a good archiving service, that's part of your email. So again, I use Gmail, so the archiving is really great. So I don't delete anything, I just hit the archive key. But then I may just like cut and paste just the subject of the email, put it in my to-do list, so I know exactly what to look for, or I pay attention to who it's from. So then when November 10th rolls around and I said, okay, this is the day I was going to read all that whole RTI document, then I could just go into my archive and I can find it and then take care of it that way.
Now, I use Gmail for like all my personal things, and you know that's connected to my blog and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So, so I use it. I use it quite often. Now I'm just kind of glancing at that. So I have a bunch of unread. I would say actually less than my work email. I probably have about 10 right now. And what I've been doing, and this is what I'm maybe seeking help with, so I let them sit here because I know, like, you know, there's something that I need to write for, you know, a particular magazine article that's coming out. But I know that that's not due until January. So what you're saying is that now this was sent to me October 16th. It's not due until January. So you wouldn't let it just sit there. You would assign it a task like using OmniFocus. What if you didn't have OmniFocus? How would you deal with these tasks?
You know, that's something you could just drop right in your calendar. So you could just create an event. So on, again, I'm just going to pick November 10th. On November 10th, I'm going to write this article for Ed Week, whatever it happens to be. And then just include the link, or again, just the subject title from the email right in my calendar, or any other to-do list, because there's so many products out there. OmniFocus, I really like it, but I know that it isn't you know, the only one for people to do. But you could still just throw it on your calendar, and so then get it out of your inbox, because then you're less likely to overlook something that really needs your attention as it comes in. And we've all done this before. We have a whole bunch of stuff in our email, and as we're scanning through it, we accidentally delete something. So the fewer items you have in your inbox, the more attention it's going to get, and also just the less likely you are to make a mistake and either misfile it or accidentally delete it.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Like, before I started getting to Inbox Zero, I realized I would miss emails because, you know, they weren't highlighted or, you know, bold or whatever. I'd be reading something and then get interrupted, and then later on, like, it wasn't important anymore in my inbox because it was marked as read. It never showed up as anything, and, you know, I would miss important things. So that's why I've been really trying to be as awesome as you at getting to Inbox Zero.
Yeah, and some things do sort themselves out, or they reprioritize. So you may get something that, hey, I really want to get this done, and you put a date to it. Then that date rolls around, and you realize, you know what, this has already been dealt with, or it's no longer important. You know, so while you could just easily delete it out of your inbox at that time, once that calendar date rolls around, or it's on your to-do list, then it might be, you know what, I really don't care about that anymore, and then just check it off. It's done.
So do you you talk about 5 sentences? What is that?
5 sentences is just a philosophy, and you can find it, so 5.sentenc and then .es. And it's just like a philosophy about email, and it's one that you know, I've always had in mind, and that's once I get to paragraph 2 about writing an email, then I realize it shouldn't be an email. That's when you pick up the phone or you go visit somebody. That's for like personal communication. But if you need to just spew out a whole bunch of information and to like my staff, you know, and I've done this, I've sent longer emails, but it's a whole bunch of information they need to know about our new evaluation system. That's one thing. But if a parent is emailing me and I realize that my email is getting pretty deep and complicated, then I don't think it's appropriate for email. That's when I'll pick up the phone and I'll give people a call. But so 5 sentences. I'll just read it to you. It says it's a personal policy that all email responses, regardless of recipient or subject, will be 5 sentences or less. It's that simple. So I don't subscribe to that all the time, but it's one that I think really works well.
Okay.
Have you ever used the short, like the keyboard shortener? I learned that from Justin Bader at the Principal Center, where common responses that you might have to a parent, like, why was the decision made on weather, like, for a school cancellation. I have it like typed up of what I would say, and then it's a quick shortener to type it in there, and then it appears without me having to type it all, or those common.
No, I've never done that. But sometimes, like if I'm setting up a whole bunch of evaluation conferences where the best way to communicate is email, I'll just cut and paste. Make sure I change whoever it happens to be, and then I'll cut and paste the body like that.
Sorry, Spike. I just thought of another example. Like, I have some recurring things in my Google Calendar. Like, one example is every Friday I will email the teacher whose scheduled Friday it is for their kids to come down for a celebration announcements. And in my calendar, I added in the box of the notes in Google Calendar of what my email is to the teacher, so I don't have to retype it every time. I just pull that up and copy and paste it into there so that I have that reminder. And anything else that I have like that, I've started trying to do that too, just to save me. All right, sorry I cut you off.
That's okay. So, all right. So we talked about the inbox and how you filter and how you deal with emails that are coming in. So we started to get a little bit on this about sending emails. So as a principal, there's a lot of different philosophies out there about how you communicate with your staff. There's some principals that talk about utilizing Twitter or Google Docs or things like that to communicate a little bit more. But like if you go back to, and I know you're familiar with, like, say, Todd Whitaker, that philosophy of getting a weekly memo out of some sort to the staff. How do you communicate with your staff in mass when you have different things going on? So, because I know you do weekly updates and things like that. So how do you deal with that? Like, what's your philosophy on that?
Right. So I don't want people sending me a whole bunch of emails, and at the same point, I don't want to send out a whole bunch of emails too, because I realize how they can get lost. Or I also understand that some of the content of my email might not be the most important thing that's going to come to them. So in communicating with my teachers, I have what we call the Hawkeye, because our school we're the Hawks. So I'll every Friday, and I just use Google Sites. So to me, it's the best way to communicate. So it's like a newsletter. It's just like Todd had talked about his Friday Focus. So that's where I'll use. So I'll just have a document that I keep started each week, or a page, I guess. And then as things come up, I'm like, oh, the staff should know about this. Then I'll just open that up and paste it in there, rather than forwarding all these emails on all the time, because then they will get lost. So I don't want to send out a bunch of emails, or when I do send out an email because it's a matter of a timely issue, then people will know, okay, this is probably something I should look at. But then another reason I like using a Google site or any other web page that you would do is just the search feature. So if a teacher had a question about, I'll just use educator effectiveness, which is our new evaluation system in Wisconsin. So they can just go into the search feature of the website. They don't even have to remember exactly which page it was. They'll just do a search, and then they'll see all the different times it was mentioned in the newsletter that I send out.
I do that too, Curt, and honestly, I found it so helpful for me because, when it comes time, to writing my Friday Focus post for the week, I'm like, okay, what did I write about last year that I should make sure that I include for reminders? And that helps me to just go back and find what I said before.
So with the Google site, how do they know that it's updated? I mean, I know you do it every week, but do you send them an email with a link?
I will, yes. So I'll send out an email, and I'll just say, here's next week's Hawkeye, and I might put a little tease in there. It's like, hey, it has important information about early dismissal day on Friday. I'm not going to put all that in the email. I want them to dig into it. And so I'll just give them a reminder, and I'll put the link right in there.
So the system that I use it sounds very similar. Like, we do a weekly blog, and I usually update it over the weekend. Now I'm finding myself it's just a lot easier for me to do that. So it has the weekly schedule, video, pictures. Pretty much it's pretty standard. I mean, I always talk about how I learned from both of you. And took, I feel like, the best from both of you. So but when I send my email, because that blog post is really for the overall community, so it's parents, teachers, students, and anyone else who comes across it on Twitter. There's some things in there that maybe I don't want to include. For instance, like I'm going to be out this week. I have a presentation tomorrow. I'm on jury duty call every day, so I may not be in. So I don't want to necessarily put that out on the blog. So there are things that are there things that you don't put on the Google site that you'd rather just keep in the email?
Right. Yeah, I do the same thing. So if there's a reminder about using personal days the appropriate way, or using the correct paperwork, TPS reports, knowing that my Google site is a public document, I won't put that in there. I will send that in a separate email, because then it also kind of separates it a little bit, just so that they see, okay, this is something different. I better pay attention to that.
Then you can really refer to, did you get the memo on the TPS reports? Then you cover it. Okay, sorry. Hey, have you ever used Curt Nudge Mail, or I think in Gmail it's Boomerang it's called?
No, I've not. I've heard you talk about it before, but it's I don't.
Yeah,
I don't want to be too fancy with email, so I try not to add on any other extensions.
Well, okay, so when you get, and for work we don't use Gmail, but when you get an email, I know, laugh at me, Spike. When you get an email, and it's one that I don't want to schedule, I just don't really want to do anything with it yet, I'll forward it to Nudge Mail. And so like say I have an email now and I don't want to look at it until Wednesday, I will just literally send it to wednesday@nudgemail.com, and it will send back to me on Wednesday. And now I've heard people talk about how like Boomerang is just a feature of Gmail that you can use that for. But I sometimes find that helpful where it's, I'm not ready to schedule it, I don't really want to do anything with it yet, but I can get it out of my inbox and it'll come back to me when I want to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so there's a couple different services that do that. These are iOS apps. And the new one from Gmail, which I think is just called Inbox, but then also, what was the other one? I think it was just called Mailbox, and it'd be the same thing. So you would see an email, and you just swipe it a particular direction, and you just put a date there where you want to see it again. So you could just say, all right, get rid of this, but bring it back tonight, or you can put a specific date, so it shows up in your inbox again.
But and that's for an iPad?
Yeah, it's an iOS. I have it on my iPhone. Yeah, I mean, there's different, but there's also a web-based version of it too. And I have not used the Gmail inbox, which is a particular service now, different than just just like the regular name of your inbox. But it will do that same thing.
Because if you subscribe to the way that you do it, you wouldn't need that, right? You would have already determined where you're going to place that email or what you're going to do with that email.
Right. Yeah, I mean those two systems could work together, but the way I do it, I'll sit down because I don't want things coming back into my inbox. Once you touch it, it should be gone. Just like papers on your desk. Don't reshuffle your piles.
So my cheating task isn't helping me.
Yeah, don't do that. So one other thing, okay, so, and this is just for mental clarity, and I think it's important to say, is that I don't have my work email on my phone, and I just think that that's really important because when I'm home I have so many other things going on, just with my wife and my children, and then doctoral work and all that. And my teachers know that too, and there is not an expectation from our central office folks that we have to respond instantly to email, especially when we're away from work. So I don't have notifications turned on my phone or anything like that because I just think that being focused on where I'm at is incredibly important. But so the next day, by 9 o'clock the next morning, I will have processed through all my emails. So there's a kind of a black spot between like 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. the next day where I'm not responding to emails, and it has never caused an issue.
Spike, do you have your email on your phone?
I was just going to say that I do, and I was going to ask that same question. Like, you don't, but do you? Meaning Curt, but do you? I guess. Like, doesn't it make it more effective? Doesn't it make your time a little bit more effective if you can just scroll through it and take care of things?
Because you're looking at it all the time. So, and John Pedersen had said this. He said, if you have your notifications turned on, whereas like your inbox refreshes every minute. So he's like, you're scheduling 1,440 interruptions in your day all the time because it's constantly refreshing. You see that little red number pop up. So no, I don't. I'm a believer in sitting down and just getting it done. So it might only take a total of 30 minutes if I was scanning my email all night and in the morning to take care of it, or I could just sit down at one time in 30 minutes and take care of everything at the same time. So and too often, and I changed it on purpose because I'd be at the dinner table, I'd hear a ping on my phone, I'd look at it, and it'd be an email that kind of just put me in a different mood, and I didn't think that was fair to myself or my family.
Spike,
That
I just
happens
did it.
all the time.
I just took it off my phone.
I'm gonna do it.
Rip the Band-Aid.
Kurt, I think I'm gonna do that too because
I'm
it's
having a panic attack a little bit.
it's one of the discussions that my wife and I have all the time. But I guess I feel like sort of as that quote unquote connected educator that I'm accessible at all times. But I guess through what you're saying is if somebody really needed to get in touch with you, then I'm sure like your teacher could text you or somebody could call or something like that. So the email. Let's try to put this in perspective here. So the email, I don't know if I asked you this, but I mean, is email dead?
No, I mean it still serves a purpose, just like the U.S. Postal Service isn't dead. It still serves a real. I don't think we could live without it. I mean, it is sometimes it is the best way to communicate. So I do think it's important to be connected. So I'll say this. So I use IFTTT, and I have a couple recipes set up where if I get an email from my superintendent or from my wife, it will trigger a text that says, hey, you got an email from these two important people. Okay, my wife is more important than my superintendent, but I don't want to lose her messages. So if Dr. Finko emails me, no matter what time it comes in, that IFTTT recipe will send me a text saying, hey, you got an email message from Fran, and I'll take a look at that because he doesn't blast us with a lot of emails, so I know if he's emailing me, it's important. Another thing I do is I have my personal cell phone number, or my only cell phone number, in my signature line. So if someone really needs to get a hold of me, they can just call me, because my email number's right there.
You have an if this then that recipe. Say that again?
Yep. So I have an if this then that recipe. If because I don't have my work email on my phone, so I'm not scanning it all the time. But if Dr. Finko emails me, my superintendent, it will trigger an alert that will send me a text, and it just says email from Fran Finko. And then, if he's emailing me, I do want to take a look at that, just so I'm.
But could that be any email? Like my superintendent sends out emails that go to everybody. Okay. Huh.
That's interesting.
Did you take your email off your phone? Did you do it?
Not yet. Not yet.
Come on.
So let me ask you this. So all right. So email's not dead. Email's an effective way, especially within a closed, I want to say, business or school or community. It serves that purpose. It's obviously cut down on thousands and millions of of paper and stuff like that because I guess that's what we used to do. The old school principals would go through, put the memos in everybody's box. Mm-hmm. How many emails would you say you send out to your staff a week?
Oh, to the whole staff?
Yeah.
Less than 10.
Okay, less than 10. How about you, Jess?
In a whole week? Yeah, to whole staff, no, I would just say a few. I mean, because I try to keep everything to my Friday Focus post. To whole staff, it's only like if something was missed from the morning announcements for the most part. Okay, because I guess you guys have like your district administrators and supervisors and people like that who may send you things to forward to your staff or whatnot. So you would just, I guess what you do when you get stuff that you have to forward on, you've created a filtering system as opposed to just hitting forward all the time, because then you're sending that same message to the teachers. If my superintendent or the tech director or somebody wants something sent to all staff, they send it to all staff. I don't send it. It comes from them. And then I'll include a reminder in my Friday Focus post for them.
Is that the same with you, Curt?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll get emails where I'm asked to forward it on, and I don't know why people sending it to me wouldn't just, especially from within our school district, I don't know why they wouldn't just send it on to the whole staff anyway, but maybe they just aren't quite as tech savvy and don't understand the different distribution lists we have set up. So I just do it. So, but I'll always put a little personal message with it. Hey, see the following information from the library about whatever it happens to be.
Okay, so I know this isn't email related, but you still get, and I know we all still get mail. how do you? Because you had talked about piles and files.
Oh, that you got to read Getting Things Done.
I was going to say this could really turn into a whole nother thing, but just real quick then, how do you use the same philosophy do both of you use the same philosophy as email as you do, the written?
I follow the philosophy. Curt actually accomplishes the philosophy. He could eat off of his desk at any part of it. It is completely cleaned off.
Right, and I think of those two spaces, both just my inbox, but then also my desktop. To me, if those two places are organized, I think that's a sign of mental clarity for me, which is really good. And the part that I really love about the Getting Things Done book is where it talks about commitments. And when we know we have a whole bunch of stuff we have to get done, and we haven't got it finished, then we feel disappointment with ourselves because we've let someone else down. Whereas if we have a system where we said, I'm going to take care of this on this date, and here's what I'm going to do, then to me it makes me feel better about how I do my work, and I know I'm not letting anyone else down. So I mean, it's just that chapter or those couple pages I read over and over frequently because it really helps me understand about just being organized. It's not a selfish act. It's how you. I mean, it is selfish in a positive way, but it also talks about how you value other people's time. Like if you forget to do things because you've just forgotten, then I don't know. It doesn't feel good when someone does that to me. When I think I need something done, and they say, okay, yep, I'll take care of it. Then it doesn't happen.
So to wrap this up. Right, because this has been fascinating. I will say that Jess, I was wrong, and we probably could go an hour and a half into this, but because I still feel like I have more questions. But if you were to give us, and our listeners, like maybe the top 5 things to do to start to, like you said, get things done, become more productive. Do you have any blog posts or books or just websites that you would recommend for us?
Well, number one, just anything from David Allen. So his book, Getting Things Done, was written before email was like a really big thing, and I don't know if he's come out with a new version of it, but he doesn't talk a lot about email in that book, but just the philosophy is important. Recently, he was on NPR a couple Sundays ago, so if you can track that down, I mean, it was a wonderful interview that he did. So just have and this goes beyond email, but just have a system for what you are going to do, whether it's OmniFocus or you have a day planner kind of thing. Just have a good system for keeping track of what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So let me see. That's 2.
That's 2.
The third one, you know what? Don't let email dictate how you're going to spend your time. So for a school principal, our jobs are busy enough, so I just say don't worry about email when you're at home unless that's an expectation, a clearly stated expectation from your supervisor. Make yourself available in other ways because people are real quick to fire off emails, but then not very understanding when you don't respond. Whereas if you say, you know what, I'm not going to check my email, but if you really need me, here's my cell phone. And then I'll also kind of throw in I put my kids to bed kind of between 7:30 and 8:30, so be careful about that time. That makes people think. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I better not call. They won't call between that hour, but then also they'll realize that this thing can wait. My top 5. Okay, so number 4.
Sending. Yeah.
Yeah. So number 4 would be don't let your inbox be your to-do list. Okay, it clutters up your inbox, and then you're going to lose something, and then you don't get all your tasks done. But then also, okay, so I'll say number 5 for me would be don't clutter up anyone else's email inbox too. Recognize when the most appropriate form of communication is not email, whether that's a phone call or go visit, especially if it's like an emotional topic. You might send off a quick reply, say, hey, this is really important to me. I'm going to give you a call at 4 o'clock, whatever it happens to be. That would be an okay email, but don't try to justify everything in writing because you lose that, I guess, that emotional context that you could give it with a face-to-face conversation or a phone call.
It's fascinating.
That's a great list, Curt. And I think it's funny that Spike didn't think we could talk about email, and now I'm in the comments saying, Spike, our time is up. Come on.
I know. We went over and stuff, but I don't know. And the thing is, if you were to talk to my colleagues, they would probably say he's really organized. He's very prompt on getting back to emails. He rarely forgets things and stuff. But I'll be honest with you, when I listen to you guys and to other people talk about really getting things done, I'm like, oh, I'm far away from this. I'm lucky sometimes that I get some of the things that I do. And I think that what you're talking about is like you get this system in place, and then you use that system. You know, it's a tried and true, like you even said. You know, adapt it a little bit for your own, and then as you implement it, it probably is going to free some things up. Because I'll be honest with you, I check email all the time, and I'm not going to stop doing it.
I think it has to become a habit, and what's hard to make something an effective habit is that we get interrupted so much and things pile up that I haven't gotten to the point where it's an effective habit that I always stay with. Just because the nature of this job, and you know, have a couple bad days and you're behind by like a week all of a sudden. So that makes it hard. Curt somehow does it.
And I used to be that way. So I remember when I got my first smartphone was a BlackBerry, and I would like brag about, you know, how quickly I'd respond to people's emails, and then I realized I was ignoring people like who were actually in my physical presence who deserve more attention than this email coming from far away. And then I think it also just gets other people into bad habits. It's like, you know, if they or he will respond to my email right away because that's what he does. Then they expect that from you.
So wise, Curt is.
So my wife is a university professor, and something that she has started to do, and I see other professors doing this, is like, because a lot of their students, you know, who are in their teens and 20s, you know, think that email should just be responded to right away. But she'll put it in her syllabus, but then also in her opening class, just say, you know what, it may take me a couple days to respond. You know, to you via email. If you have a question, throw it out to our class hashtag on Twitter, or you can find me this way. And
that's great.
That's working well for her.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Curt, especially on a Sunday when there's football going on right now.
Yeah, well, my game was at 3 o'clock. Go Broncos. We're going to take down the Patriots today.
I don't know. They call that a little trap game, they're saying, that the Patriots
are blizzard up there right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
We had a bad nor'easter, but we didn't get much snow. I tell you, wind, rain, you know, like really, really bad. But, you know, I can't wait for the Eagles, so...
All right, I think we got to end this one, Mike. It's been way over 20 minutes, all right?
Well, we don't get a lot of Curt time like you do in Wisconsin. So.
I know I get a lot of Curt time. Yeah. All right, Principal PLN out.
Thanks for sharing and learning with us today.